In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the lower control arm with the ball joint on the front of this Hyundai Accent. Let's get started. Use a 21mm socket, remove the 4 lug nuts that hold the wheel on, and then remove the wheel. If you have hubcaps, the hubcap will have to come off after the lug nuts. Here's our control arm. As you can see, the ball joint stud goes through the bottom of the knuckle. Use a 19mm wrench, put it on the mounting nut, and try to break this free. The reason I say try is because it doesn't always break free, in which case you would have to pull the knuckle apart from the top so you can put a power tool on it. It looks like in my case, this did come off, so that's good. I'm going to continue removing this mounting nut until it is completely separated from the stud. There it is. Because I'm replacing this ball joint, I'm using a pickle fork to separate it. If you are not, you can pry down with a pry bar on the control arm and tap the knuckle with a hammer. That should also separate it, but this is going to be a whole lot easier, and I don't have to worry about damaging it because a pickle fork does damage the ball joint. Pry down on the control arm. Well, there we go. That just separated, so pull the knuckle out of the way. Push that aside. Now let's use a 17mm socket. You may or may not need a swivel, and remove the forward lower control arm bolt. There it is. For the rear bolt, you'll need a 19mm socket on the bottom and a 19 wrench on the top. Hold that nut with a wrench and remove the bolt. All right, I'm going to switch to a 3/8 breaker bar with a 19mm socket that I can rest up against the frame because that nut is really stuck on there. The bolt is spinning, but I just can't hold it. So let's try again. Okay, there's the mounting nut. Bolt comes out through the bottom. Definitely gonna have some cleaning to do on this bolt, but it is in reusable condition. Inspect your bolt. If yours looks like it's in really poor condition, you're gonna need to replace it with one of equal hardness. Don't just get a soft grade bolt. You want to make sure it meets the manufacturer's specifications. This one looks okay, just going to clean up some rust on it, but it's reusable. It's time to pry the control arm out of here. When you do this, be careful of your CV boot. You don't want to separate the joint on the inner CV right here, and don't want to overstretch that boot. But you can push the knuckle out of the way to make space. So, there we go. Swing it sideways. Take it out. There it is. Let's install the new control arm. Slide it into the back first, and I'm going to put the bolt through. That way it's held on, and I can pry down on the control arm and on the bushing without it coming out of place. It's easiest to line it up now. Start on that mounting nut. Not tightening anything, just starting it. You want to be very careful of your ball joint boot, so I tied a rag on here. That way it doesn't get damaged. because now we have to pry the control arm into place on this forward side. So I'm gonna have to dip it underneath the knuckle and push it up in place. Okay. Use a rubber mallet, not a steel hammer, so that you don't damage the control arm. It seems like the ball joint is wanting to line up and go into the knuckle here, so I'm gonna remove my rag and hopefully it'll slide right in. This should also help me install that front bolt. Yep, that just wants to slide right in, so might as well let it, because now we can use the entire knuckle to pry, push, and pull on that control arm. Let's go back to trying to line up this bolt. Okay, between prying and moving the knuckle, I got this lined up. I'm going to make sure this starts on by hand. I don't want to cross thread the bolt in there. Okay, that's definitely going in smoothly, so might as well tighten it up right now. All right, when you tighten this, you don't want to completely tighten it. We do need to raise the control arm so we can torque this bushing at right height. Otherwise, it will put pressure on it constantly if it's not at right height, but right height is here, so it'll wear prematurely. Having said that, we're gonna leave that for last, so let's move back to the rear bushing. This one does not require the vehicle to be at right height, so we can torque this. This gets torqued to 130 foot-pounds. Hold the mounting nut, snug up the bolt. Now let's get the torque wrench. Once again, 130 foot-pounds. That's it right there. Let's get the ball joint nut reinstalled, the new one that is. If you have a ratcheting wrench, 19 millimeter in size, this will come in handy because it's going to make things a lot faster. The torque for this is 52 foot-pounds. You cannot fit a torque wrench in here unless you disassemble the knuckle. 52 foot-pounds, however, is not a lot. You can definitely do that by hand with a wrench. So I'm just going to do my best. Tighten this up. That should be pretty close to 52 foot-pounds. This is also a locking nut, keep that in mind, so it does lock by itself. I'm going to use a pole jack. Since I'm on a lift, if you're on the ground, you could just use your floor jack. I'm going to raise this just a couple inches, just so I can match right height. That way that bushing that we're going to torque is not put in a bind all the time, since it will be lower if we torque it now. This bolt gets torqued to 87 foot-pounds. That's it right there. Let's lower the pole jack or lower your support, whatever you're using. There we have it. Let's put the wheel back on. Get the wheel back on. If your vehicle had hubcaps, now is the time to put them on because this style gets clamped on with the lug nuts. Also, make sure you line up this cutout with the valve stem, otherwise the valve stem will get crushed and the hubcap won't quite fit on very nicely. Hold the wheel on and start on the 4 lug nuts that hold the wheel on. After this, we'll bottom them out, and the torque for this is between 65 and 80 foot-pounds. I'm just going to go for 80 on the tighter side. Snug these up in a cross pattern to seat the wheel evenly. Now let's lower the vehicle with a little bit of pressure on the wheel and torque the lug nuts to 80 foot-pounds. Double check them. All right, job is done. Go get yourself an alignment because we did replace a suspension component.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.